has conceded the election and spoken with the president-elect. This would be an historic achievement for the Gambia. Never before has power changed hands through the ballot box. So it's a big deal. We encourage all Gambians to respect the election results, and we urge the government of the Gambia to respect the rights of citizens to freely assemble as they respond to the results of the election. Again, we applaud the Gambian population for participating in this election with a high voter turnout and generally peaceful conditions, albeit, of course, with a high security posture. Okay? Yeah.
The U.S. announced today unilateral sanctions on North Korea, alongside Japan and South Korea. Could you comment a little bit about this?
So today, in response to North Korea's continuing provocations, and in particular their September 2016 nuclear test, ongoing prohibited development of weapons of mass destruction, and continued violations of UN Security Council resolutions, the Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control designated 16 entities and 7 individuals for their ties to the government of North Korea for its nuclear and weapons proliferation efforts. And they identified 16 aircraft blocked as property of a designated entity. These designations were made pursuant to Executive Order 13382, which targets WMD proliferators and their supporters. Also were made pursuant to Executive Order 13687, which targets the government of North Korea, the Workers' Party of Korea, and their supporters, and it was pursuant to Executive Order 13722, which targets in part North Korea's trade in metals, graphite, coal, and software, revenue from overseas workers, and North Korea's transportation, mining, energy, and financial services industries. Okay.
Speak a little more specifically on the DPRK nationals working overseas, and then also on the restrictions on Air Koryo.
The Security Council Resolution 2321, which was also just passed, makes clear North Korea's export of labor generates significant revenue for the government, and it enables the development of its illicit nuclear and missile programs. Further, our Executive Order 13722 excludes the authority to target North Korea's exportation of labor. You were asking about the airline. It is North Korea's state-sponsored airline, and it has facilitated shipments of UN-prohibited arms and related material. To support its activities, Air Koryo has representative offices all around the world. The consequences of this designation include a prohibition against U.S. persons engaging in transactions or dealings with Air Koryo, and the freezing of all of Air Koryo's property and interest in property in the United States, or which come within the United States or the possession or control of U.S. persons. Any more details, I'd have to refer you to the Treasury Department because this really was issued under their OFAC. Yeah.
Do you have a readout on the meetings that Brett McGurk had in Baghdad?
I don't have a readout. He just got into the region. He is having meetings in Iraq, but I don't have a readout for you this time.
Do you know if he plans to go to Erbil?
I don't have a readout of his activities. He's going to be meeting, as he often does, with a range of Iraqi leaders to discuss our progress in Iraq against Daesh. But he just got there. As I understand it, these meetings are ongoing, and so I think when we get on the back end of it, we might be able to provide you a little bit more context. Okay? Yeah.
President
Facilitation, translation, or context, which we have done and will continue to do, but the degree to which that it's utilized is really for the transition team to decide, and it's really more appropriate for them to speak to. Okay?
Great. According to Ukrainian news agency Interfax, a member of Ukrainian parliament, Mr. Onyshenko, was rejected for the U.S. visa a few days ago in Paris. And I suppose your team briefed you about the case of Mr. Onyshenko, who previously indicated his desire to cooperate with the U.S. government and provide the U.S. government some specific audio records which could be recognized as the evidences of the violation of the Ukrainian law by the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko.
I'm sorry, the name was?
Mr. Onyshenko, the member of Ukrainian parliament, indicated his desire to provide to the U.S. government some specific audio records which could be...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Of course.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand you at first. I'm really not at liberty to discuss this much. I'm really going to have to ask you to refer you to the government of Ukraine to speak to that.
Could you please confirm that his visa application was rejected?
We do not talk about the specific. As they have pursued some communication.
And in this case?
Again, I'm not going to talk about specific phone calls and meetings. That's really for the president-elect and his team to speak to, not us. But we, again, stand ready to support in any way that they might require.
Does the transition team give you guys a heads up if they're going to call, like, the president of some country?
I'm not aware that, first of all, there's no requirement for them to do that. And as I said to Carol, there have been occasions when we have provided material, so
then you know.
Then obviously you know if you're being asked for material or support, but they don't have to tell us in advance of any communication that they have with foreign leaders. And again, I'd let them speak to the degree to which they do that.
Has that complicated anything for you all?
I'm not aware that there's been any complications for us. We're focused, and look, the Secretary's in Rome today. We've got a trip to Europe next week. I mean, we're focused on implementing the foreign policy agenda of President Obama and this administration, and we're going to stay focused on that for the remainder of time that we have in office. And it really, it's not for us to speak to the foreign policy objectives that the next administration might pursue. I'm not aware that there's been any tangible, practical effect or impact by any of the communications that the president-elect and his team have done since the election.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Have a great weekend, everybody. That was almost a record.